In my past life I sacrificed everything for a man who betrayed me with my best friend. Now reborn with memories intact, I've dedicated myself to avoiding that heartbreaking path. But fate has a twisted sense of humor. The more I push him toward her, the more desperately he clings to me. What cruel irony that in this life, where I want nothing to do with him, he's fallen madly in love with me instead. My breaths came shallow and painful as I lay in the hospital bed. The white ceiling above me blurred in and out of focus. At 52, my body was giving up after months of fighting the cancer that had spread throughout. The doctors had given me days, maybe hours. Alexander, my husband of 25 years, sat at my bedside, his handsome face showing only the mildest concern as he checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. "She won't last the night," he whispered, not to me but to someone at the door. "We'll finally be free." I couldn't turn my head, but I didn't need to. Victoria's perfume, the same expensive scent she'd worn for decades, drifted through the room as she approached. My best friend since college. The woman who had held my hand on my wedding day. The woman who, as I now realized, had been sleeping with my husband for 20 years. "Did you handle the changes to the will?" Victoria asked, her voice low but not low enough. "Everything's set. Once she's gone, the house, the investments, it all comes to me. And then us." I tried to speak, to scream, to curse them both, but my body betrayed me. I could only lie there listening to them plan their future while mine slipped away. "God, I've waited so long for this," Alexander sighed. 20 years of pretending. 20 years of coming home to her when all I wanted was you. Victoria laughed softly. "Remember when she found that text message 5 years ago? You handled her suspicions perfectly." "I almost feel bad," Alexander said, though his voice held no remorse. "She spent her life devoted to me, gave up that medical career she wanted so badly. For what? A man who never loved her." "You married her for her family's connections," Victoria reminded him. "That was the deal. And it worked. Look at where you are now. CEO of her father's company, respected, wealthy." Tears slid silently down my temples. My entire life had been a lie. I had abandoned my dreams of becoming a surgeon, turned down a prestigious scholarship, all because Alexander had convinced me that a wife's duty was to support her husband. I had believed him, believed in him, while he betrayed me with every smile, every kiss, every promise. "At least she never had children to complicate things," Victoria added. "That was smart of you." Another knife to my heart. Alexander had insisted we wait to have children. Year after year he found reasons to delay. His career, my supposed health concerns, the timing never right. Now I understood why. As my consciousness began to fade, a burning anger rose within me. Not just at them but at myself. I had been so blind, so foolish. If only I could go back. If only I could choose differently. "I wish." I managed to whisper, though neither of them bothered to lean closer to hear. "I wish I had another chance." The beeping of the heart monitor grew erratic. The room darkened around me. The last thing I heard was Alexander saying, "Call the nurse, but don't rush." Then nothing. Darkness. Peace. And then, light. My eyes snapped open. Instead of the sterile hospital ceiling, I stared up at a familiar pale blue paint. My breath came easy and deep into healthy lungs. Confused, I sat up and looked around. My old dorm room from university. The single bed with its purple comforter. The desk piled with textbooks. The corkboard covered with photos and notes. I stood on shaking legs and caught my reflection in the mirror. Looking back at me wasn't the thin, gray-haired cancer patient, but a fresh-faced 18-year-old girl with bright eyes and flushed cheeks. My hands flew to my face, feeling the smooth, youthful skin, the absence of wrinkles that had become so familiar. "Impossible," I whispered, but the calendar on the wall told me otherwise. September 15, 2005. The day I first met Alexander Carter at the university welcome party. My roommate Lily burst through the door, startling me out of my shock. "Sophia, why aren't you dressed yet? The party starts in an hour." She tossed her bag onto her bed and eyed me with concern. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." In a way I had. The ghost of my future self, of 25 years of betrayal and regret. "I'm fine," I managed, my voice sounding strange to my ears, younger, higher. "Just nervous about the party." "Well, put on that blue dress we bought. Everyone will be there, including that hot senior from the business school that Vicky keeps talking about." "Vicky." "Victoria." My throat tightened. She hadn't met Alexander yet in this timeline. In my past life I had introduced them at a study group 3 months after I started dating him. As Lily rummaged through her closet, I sank back onto my bed, mind racing. Was this real? Had I truly been given another chance? So I wouldn't waste it. This time I would pursue medicine. This time I would recognize Alexander for what he was before falling for his manipulations. Actually, I would avoid him entirely. Let Victoria have him from the start if that's what fate intended. I would focus on myself, on my dreams. I dressed mechanically, barely registering Lily's chatter about professors and campus rumors. The blue dress, which Alexander had once claimed was the reason he first noticed me, felt like a costume now. I left my hair down instead of putting it up as I had in my past life. You're acting weird, Lily noted as we walked across campus toward the welcome party. Music and laughter spilled from the open doors of the student center. Just thinking about classes, I said. I want to make sure I have everything ready for the pre-med track. Lily rolled her eyes. School hasn't even started and you're already stressing. Relax. Tonight is about fun, not studying. The party was exactly as I remembered. Crowded, loud, dimly lit. In my first life, I had spent the evening nervously sipping punch in the corner until Alexander approached me with that charming smile that would eventually lead to my downfall. This time I moved confidently through the crowd. When I accidentally bumped into someone spilling my drink, I turned to apologize and froze. Alexander Carter stood before me, tall and handsome in his dark blue shirt, looking exactly as he had 25 years ago when we first met. "I'm so sorry," he said, grabbing napkins from a nearby table. "Let me help you with that." The familiar voice sent shivers down my spine, not of attraction but of dread and anger. In my past life I had found his deep voice captivating. Now I heard only the echoes of his cruel words at my deathbed. "It's fine," I said coldly, stepping back from his offered napkins. "No harm done." He blinked, clearly surprised by my dismissive tone. Most girls at university were eager for his attention. His family name and good looks guaranteed that. "I'm Alexander Carter," he said, extending his hand with that confident smile I once adored. "I know," I replied without taking it. "Your family owns half the city." His smile faltered slightly. This wasn't how our first meeting had gone before. In my past life I had blushed and stammered, completely charmed. "And you are?" he pressed, hand still extended. "Late for something more important," I answered, turning away. The stunned look on his face was deeply satisfying. As I walked away, a weight lifted from my shoulders. I was free. This time I would write my own story. I spotted Victoria across the room, chatting with a group of girls. She hadn't betrayed me yet in this timeline. Maybe she never would if I stayed away from Alexander. An idea formed in my mind. Why not introduce them now? Push them together from the start? If they were truly meant to be, as they seemed to believe during my last moments, then I would simply speed up the inevitable and save myself 25 years of pain. With newfound purpose, I grabbed an extra cup of punch and headed toward Victoria, already planning how to describe Alexander as the perfect man for her. What a delicious irony it would be to play matchmaker to my future betrayers. Little did I know that fate had other, more surprising plans in store. Victoria squealed when I approached with the extra cup of punch. "Sophia, I was just looking for you." Her face lit up with genuine happiness to see me, a stark contrast to the cold, calculating woman who had stood by my deathbed. This younger Victoria still had innocence in her eyes. "I brought you a drink," I said, studying her face. Strange how time erases the memory of small details. The tiny freckle beneath her right eye, the way her smile tilted slightly to the left. Nothing about her screamed future betrayer. "You're the best. Have you met anyone interesting yet?" She glanced around the room eagerly. "Perfect opening. Actually, I just bumped into Alexander Carter. You know, the business school senior everyone talks about." Her eyes widened. "Alexander Carter? As in Carter Enterprises Alexander Carter? Where is he?" She stood on tiptoes, scanning the crowd. "Over there by the punch bowl. Dark hair, blue shirt. He seems nice." The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Victoria smoothed her hair. "How do I look?" "Presentable enough to meet the heir to a fortune." "You look beautiful," I said truthfully. Victoria had always been stunning, tall, willowy with perfect honey blonde hair. In my past life I had constantly felt like her shadow. Come on, I'll introduce you. We weaved through the crowd. Alexander was still at the punch bowl, surrounded now by 3 giggling girls. When he saw me approaching, something flickered in his eyes. Curiosity perhaps, or wounded pride from my earlier dismissal. Alexander, I called with forced brightness, I'd like you to meet my friend Victoria Hayes. Victoria, this is Alexander Carter. Victoria extended her hand with a dazzling smile. It's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard so much about your family's company. Alexander shook her hand briefly, his eyes never leaving my face. Nice to meet you, Victoria. Then to my surprise he turned fully toward me. I didn't catch your name earlier. Sophia. Sophia Chen. Sophia, he repeated as if testing the sound of it. Are you enjoying the party, Sophia? Victoria looked between us, confusion crossing her features as Alexander completely ignored her attempts at conversation. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. In my past life, Alexander had been immediately drawn to Victoria's beauty and charm when they met, though he had hidden it well at the time. The party's fine, I said curtly. Victoria is studying journalism. She's brilliant, already published in the university paper. That's nice, Alexander said distractedly. What about you, Sophia? What are you studying? Pre-med. I'm going to be a surgeon. The words came out with fierce determination. In this life nothing would stand in my way. His eyebrows rose. Impressive. My mother is on the board at Metropolitan Hospital. They have an excellent internship program for medical students. Victoria tried to rejoin the conversation. My uncle works in hospital administration. What a coincidence. Alexander nodded politely at Victoria before turning back to me. Maybe I could put in a good word for you, Sophia. Over coffee sometime. I stiffened. This was exactly what I was trying to avoid. That's not necessary. I plan to earn my spot through merit, not connections. His smile widened as if my rejection was a delightful challenge rather than the firm dismissal I intended. I respect that. Independence is admirable. An awkward silence fell. Victoria glanced between us with growing confusion. Finally I grabbed her arm. We should find Lily. Nice meeting you, Alexander. I pulled Victoria away before he could respond. What was that? Victoria hissed once we were out of earshot. He was clearly interested in you and you just shut him down. He's not my type, I said firmly. But he'd be perfect for you. Smart, ambitious, from a good family. Exactly what you're looking for, right? Victoria looked back over her shoulder. Maybe, but he couldn't take his eyes off you. I know an interested man when I see one. Trust me, you'd be much better suited. I'll help you get his attention. I squeezed her arm. Consider it my mission this semester. Over the next 2 weeks, I orchestrated accidental meetings between Victoria and Alexander. I convinced her to join the business ethics seminar he attended. I suggested she study in the cafe where he took his morning coffee. I even arranged a group outing to a gallery opening his family was sponsoring. Yet every time Alexander found ways to direct his attention to me instead of Victoria. When she asked insightful questions in the seminar, he would turn to get my opinion. At the cafe he changed tables to sit nearer to me. At the gallery he spent the evening explaining his mother's art collection. To me, not Victoria. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my studies with an intensity that surprised my professors. Armed with knowledge from my future life, I aced every test, contributed insightful comments in class discussions, and began research work that normally would have been reserved for upperclassmen. Miss Chin, Dr. Winters, my anatomy professor, stopped me after class one day. Your understanding of cardiovascular systems is unusual for a first-year student. I froze. I needed to be more careful. I studied extensively in high school, I lied. I've always been fascinated by the heart. Well, it shows. I'd like you to consider joining my research team this summer. We're developing a new approach to valve replacements. The opportunity one had missed in my past life. I'd be honored, Dr. Winters. As I left the building, clutching the research proposal to my chest, I nearly collided with Alexander, who was leaning against a column outside. Congratulations, he said with a genuine smile. I overheard. That's a prestigious position. I stepped back. Are you following me? Not exactly. I was meeting with the Dean of Business. but seeing you is a pleasant bonus. He fell into step beside me. You've been avoiding me. I've been busy. Some of us have to work for our futures. Instead of taking offense, he laughed. You're different, Sophia Chin. Most people either want something from me or try to impress me. You do neither. Maybe there's nothing about you that impresses me, I said coolly. He clutched his chest in mock pain. You wound me. At least give me a chance to change that impression. Why bother? There are plenty of girls eager for your attention. Victoria, for instance. Victoria is lovely but predictable. You. His eyes held mine. You're a mystery. I quickened my pace. I'm not interested in being your mystery or anything else, Alexander. Now if you'll excuse me, I have lab work. That evening Victoria perched on my bed, visibly frustrated. It's been 2 weeks, Sophia. I've done everything you suggested and Alexander barely notices me. What am I doing wrong? Guilt twisted in my stomach. Nothing. It's not you, it's... I sighed. Maybe we should try something more direct. A party. My birthday is next week. I'll invite him and then conveniently get sick last minute. You can host in my place. Victoria brightened. That could work. Your apartment is much nicer than the dorms anyway. The birthday party plan was set in motion. I invited a small group including Alexander and some mutual friends. I even befriended James Lin, a brilliant but shy classmate from my biochemistry course, to ensure the gathering wouldn't be too intimate. James was a revelation, someone who had barely registered in my past life. We bonded over late-night study sessions and shared research interests. His quiet humor and keen intelligence made him easy company, a welcome contrast to the emotional chess match with Alexander. The night before my party, everything was prepared. Victoria had helped decorate my small off-campus apartment with tasteful birthday decor. The food was ordered, the guest list confirmed. Remember, Victoria said as she adjusted a banner, you start feeling unwell about an hour in, then retreat to your bedroom. I'll take over as hostess, and you'll give me a perfect opportunity to comfort Alexander when he expresses concern for you. Exactly. I smiled, ignoring the twinge of unease. Was I manipulating both of them? In trying to avoid my past, was I creating something equally problematic? That night, unable to sleep, I wandered to my tiny balcony. The city lights blurred through unexpected tears. Everyone in my life, Victoria, Alexander, my classmates, they were all living their lives linearly, making choices for the first time. Only I carried the burden of knowing how it all ended. Only I lived with the ghost of a future that I was trying desperately to change. A knock at my door startled me. Who would visit at midnight? I peered through the peephole and nearly gasped. Alexander stood in the hallway, shifting nervously from foot to foot, a small wrapped package in his hand. I opened the door cautiously. Alexander, what are you doing here? I wanted to give you this before your party tomorrow. He held out the package. May I come in for a moment? Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. Alexander entered, looking around my apartment with interest. Your gift couldn't wait until tomorrow? I asked, not touching the package he offered. I wanted to give it to you privately. He placed it on my coffee table. Open it. Hesitantly, I unwrapped the small box. Inside was a vintage silver pen, elegant and clearly expensive. A pen. It belonged to my grandmother. She was one of the first female surgeons in this city. His eyes met mine. When you said you wanted to be a surgeon, it reminded me of her. She always said the right tools make the difference between good work and great work. I stared at the pen, unexpectedly moved. In my past life, Alexander's first gift had been flashy jewelry, beautiful but impersonal. This was thoughtful, connected to my ambitions. I can't accept this, I said, though my fingers lingered on the cool silver. It's too valuable, too personal. Please. My grandmother would have wanted someone passionate to have it. His voice softened. Someone like you. The moment stretched between us, charged with something I wouldn't, name. Then a sharp knock broke the tension. I opened the door to find Victoria, her eyes wide with surprise at seeing Alexander in my apartment at midnight. Vicky, what are you doing here? I asked. I forgot my phone. Her voice trailed off as she looked between us. I didn't realize you had company. Alexander smiled politely. I was just leaving. Looking forward to the party tomorrow, Sophia. He nodded to Victoria as he slipped past her into the hallway. Victoria closed the door and whirled on me. What was that? After all your talk about not being interested. It's not what you think, I said quickly. He just dropped off a birthday gift. At midnight. Her eyebrows rose skeptically. Sophia, if you like him, just say so. Don't keep pushing him toward me if you want him for yourself. I don't want him. I protested, perhaps too vehemently. I'm serious about helping you two connect. Tomorrow's party will prove it. Victoria left, clearly unconvinced. I sank onto my couch, staring at the silver pen. Alexander's grandmother's pen. A gift with meaning, with history. Changed nothing, I told myself firmly. One thoughtful gift didn't erase 20 years of future betrayal. Tomorrow I would stick to the plan. Tomorrow I would ensure that Alexander and Victoria began their path together, without me. What I didn't realize was that fate had already begun to rearrange the pieces on the board, setting up a game entirely different from the one I thought I was playing. My birthday party was in full swing, but nothing was going according to plan. I had intended to retreat to my bedroom with a headache after an hour, leaving Victoria to charm Alexander. Instead, I found myself trapped in conversation with Alexander's father, Charles Carter, who had unexpectedly arrived with his son. So you're the young woman Alexander keeps talking about, Mr. Carter said, studying me with shrewd eyes that missed nothing. Pre-med at 19. Impressive. 18 actually. Today's my birthday, I corrected automatically, then regretted drawing attention to my age. In my past life, his opinion of me had always been that I was too young, too naive for his brilliant son. Even more impressive. He sipped his drink. Alexander mentioned you have some innovative theories about cardiac care. I tensed. Alexander and I had never discussed medicine in any detail. How would he know about my research interests? I've been working with Dr. Winters, I said cautiously. His team is exploring new approaches to valve replacement. Mr. Carter nodded. Winters is good. Not great, but good. The real innovation is happening at Carter Memorial Hospital. He leaned closer. We're always looking for fresh talent, Ms. Chen. Before I could respond, Alexander appeared at my side, placing a protective hand on my back. Dad, you promised not to recruit at the party. Just making conversation, Mr. Carter said with an unapologetic smile. Your friend is quite remarkable. I'm well aware, Alexander replied, his hand still resting lightly on my back. The warmth of it sent an unwelcome tingle up my spine. But tonight is for celebrating, not networking. Mr. Carter's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned, and excused himself to take the call. As he stepped away, Alexander turned to me with an apologetic smile. Sorry about that. My father sees every talented person as a potential asset for the family business. I have no interest in corporate medicine, I said firmly. I want to help people, not shareholders. Not all corporate involvement corrupts, Alexander argued gently. The right investments can make treatments accessible to more people. I was about to debate this point when Mr. Carter returned, his face ashen. Alexander, we need to leave. Now. What's wrong? Alexander asked, instantly alert. Your mother collapsed at the charity gala. They've taken her to Metropolitan. Alexander's face drained of color. Was it her heart again? Mr. Carter nodded grimly. The doctors aren't sure what's happening. Let's go. Alexander turned to me, conflict clear in his eyes. Sophia, Go, I said immediately. Family comes first. He squeezed my hand gratefully before rushing out with his father. The party continued around me, but my mind was racing. In my past life, Mrs. Carter had suffered a mysterious cardiac episode around this time, but it had been minor, quickly resolved. The fact that she had collapsed publicly suggested something more serious in this timeline. Victoria sidled up beside me. What was that about? His mother collapsed. They've gone to the hospital. I chewed my lip, genuinely concerned. Despite everything, I had always liked Alexander's mother. In my past life, she had been kind to me even when her husband looked down on me as a social climber. That's terrible. Victoria gasped. Should we go to show support? I hesitated. This could be Victoria's opportunity to get closer to Alexander, to be there for him in a crisis. Exactly as I had been in my past life. Yet I found myself strangely reluctant to suggest it. Before I could decide, my phone rang. Alexander. Sophia. His voice was tight with worry. I know it's a lot to ask, but could you come to Metropolitan? The doctors here are saying one thing, but something doesn't add up. You know more about cardiac issues than anyone I know. I closed my eyes. This was not part of my plan. Alexander, I'm a first-year med student. I'm not qualified to. Please. He cut in, desperation in his voice. I trust your insight. Even if it's just to help me understand what they're saying. I sighed. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Victoria's eyebrows shot up as I ended the call. You're going. His mother is sick. I'd go for anyone in that situation, I said defensively. Of course. Victoria's tone was neutral, but her eyes showed doubt. Do you want me to come with you? I almost said yes, but something held me back. No, stay and enjoy the party. You're the host now, remember? Right, she said flatly. The host. I grabbed my coat and the silver pen Alexander had given me, a strange impulse I didn't examine too closely, and headed to the hospital. The emergency room was chaotic, but I found Alexander pacing outside a treatment room, looking lost in a way I'd never seen before. Thank you for coming, he said, relief washing over his features. He led me to where doctors were reviewing Mrs. Carter's test results. Mr. Carter was arguing heatedly with a cardiologist. The tests show a standard arrhythmia, the doctor was saying patiently. We'll adjust her medication and monitor. It's not arrhythmia, I interrupted before I could stop myself. All eyes turned to me. I mean, it might present that way, but have you checked for myocarditis? The symptoms can appear similar, but the treatment protocol is completely different. The cardiologist frowned. And you are? She's with us, Mr. Carter said, eyeing me with new interest. What makes you suggest myocarditis? I swallowed hard. In my past life, years after this incident, Mrs. Carter had been correctly diagnosed with viral myocarditis, which had been misdiagnosed initially as simple arrhythmia. The improper treatment had weakened her heart over time. The sudden collapse, the abnormal ECG that doesn't quite match standard arrhythmia patterns, I improvised, trying not to reveal knowledge I shouldn't have. Has she had any viral infections recently? Even a mild cold? Mrs. Carter's personal physician stepped forward. She did mention feeling under the weather last week. We assumed it was just fatigue from her charity work. The cardiologist looked skeptical but ordered additional tests. 2 hours later, the results confirmed my suspicion. Viral myocarditis, caught early enough to treat effectively. As Mrs. Carter was moved to a private room for treatment, Mr. Carter approached me, his expression unreadable. You just altered my wife's medical trajectory with one suggestion. How did you know? Medical journals, I said quickly. I read a case study with similar presentation. He studied me for a long moment. I don't believe in coincidence, Ms. Chen. Whatever your connection to my son, I suggest you nurture it. The Carter family rewards loyalty and intelligence. Before I could respond, he walked away. Alexander appeared at my side, his eyes red-rimmed but relieved. The doctors say you probably saved her from serious long-term damage, he said quietly. How can I ever thank you? It was nothing, I insisted. Anyone with the right knowledge would have suggested the same. But they didn't. You did. He took my hand. Sophia, don't. I cut him off, gently extracting my hand. You're emotional right now. Whatever you're feeling is just gratitude, not. I couldn't finish the sentence. He searched my face. Why are you so determined to push me away? Because in another life you destroyed me, I thought but couldn't say. Instead I replied, we want different things, Alexander. You should be with someone who fits into your world. Someone like Victoria. Victoria. He looked genuinely confused. She's nice, but she's not. She's beautiful, intelligent, ambitious, I persisted. Perfect for a future CO. Alexander ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I don't want perfect. I want real. I want someone who challenges me, who sees beyond the Carter name. Someone like you. My heart traitorously skipped a beat. This Alexander was different from the man I remembered. More vulnerable, more genuine. But was it real or just another facet of his manipulation? I should go, I said, stepping back. Take care of your mother. As I walked away, my phone buzzed with a message from James. Hope the party went well. Coffee tomorrow to discuss the biochem project. I smiled despite myself. James, with his straightforward kindness and brilliant mind, was becoming an unexpected constant in my new life. Someone who had never been part of my past timeline. Over the next few weeks, my life split into distinct tracks. During days, I excelled in my classes and spent increasing time with James, whose friendship offered a refreshing simplicity. In evenings, I found myself drawn into the Carter family orbit as Mrs. Carter insisted on getting to know the young woman who saved her life. Victoria grew increasingly distant, convinced I was secretly pursuing Alexander despite my continued efforts to bring them together. The rivalry that had festered in our past life was emerging along new fault lines. Then came the announcement that changed everything. I had been selected for an elite international medical program in Switzerland, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that hadn't existed in my past life. The program would begin in 1 month, requiring me to leave the university mid-semester. "You have to accept," James insisted when I told him, though I could see disappointment in his eyes. This kind of opportunity shapes entire careers. Alexander had a different reaction when I informed him at another Carter family dinner I'd been guilted into attending. Switzerland. His voice was carefully controlled, but I could sense the tension beneath. "That's sudden." "It's an amazing opportunity," I said, watching his reaction closely. "Of course it is." He smiled tightly. "We'll have to celebrate before you go." Later that evening, as I was preparing to leave, Alexander cornered me in the hallway, his expression grave. "Don't go to Switzerland," he said without preamble. I blinked in surprise. "Excuse me. The program has a hidden catch. Participants are contractually obligated to work for 3 years at their sponsoring institution after completion. Your sponsor is PharmaCorp." I frowned. "How do you know that?" "My father sits on their board. PharmaCorp isn't interested in advancing medicine. They're developing patent-heavy treatments to maximize profit. They're recruiting brilliant young doctors to exploit their innovations." My mind raced. This information wasn't in any of the program materials. "Why are you telling me this?" Alexander stepped closer. "Because I care about you. Because I know how important your ethical principles are to you." I searched his face for signs of deception but found only genuine concern. "What would you suggest instead?" "Stay. Complete your degree here. I can help you get an independent research grant through my mother's foundation. No strings, no corporate obligations." The offer was tempting, too tempting. I stepped back, needing space to think clearly. "I need time to verify this information." "Of course." He didn't push further. "Take all the time you need." I spent the next week investigating Alexander's claims and, to my shock, confirmed everything. PharmaCorp's hidden obligations would have trapped me in a research position antithetical to my values. When I declined the Switzerland program, the university was surprisingly accommodating. Surprisingly, until I learned that the Carter Foundation had just endowed a new research chair in cardiac medicine. The day after I formally declined Switzerland, James asked me to meet him at our favorite coffee shop. When I arrived, he was nervously shredding a napkin. "Everything okay?" I asked, sliding into the seat across from him. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "I've had feelings for you since the day we met. I know you see me as just a friend, but with you staying now, I thought, maybe we could be more." I stared at him, genuinely surprised. In my focused efforts to avoid Alexander and reshape my future, I had completely missed the signals from James. "James, Before I could respond, my phone rang. Victoria's name flashed on the screen. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Victoria? What's wrong?" Her voice came through in panicked sobs. "They're threatening me, Sophia. The Carters. They know." "Know what?" "Victoria, slow down. About my brother's gambling debts. About the photos." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Alexander's father says if I don't stay away from you, he'll make sure Ryan goes to prison." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "Where are you?" "My apartment." "Please, Sophia, I'm scared." I looked apologetically at James. "I have to go. Family emergency. Rain check." He nodded, understanding but disappointed. "Of course. Call me if you need anything." I rushed to Victoria's apartment, finding her curled on her couch, eyes red from crying. She showed me threatening emails from Carter Enterprises' security team, detailing her brother's illegal gambling and how he had taken compromising photos of business rivals to pay off his debts. They say if I don't convince you to accept a research position at Carter Memorial and cut ties with James Lynn, they'll make sure Ryan faces federal charges. She looked up at me confused. But why would they care who you're friends with? What's really going on, Sophia? I sank onto the couch beside her, my mind spinning. In my past life, the Carters had never shown this level of manipulation or control. What had changed? I said slowly, Alexander has decided he wants me in his life. And his father sees me as an asset to acquire. Victoria stared at me. But you've been trying to push Alexander toward me for months. I thought you wanted nothing to do with him. I took a deep breath and made a decision. Victoria deserved the truth, at least part of it. In another life, I said carefully, I loved Alexander completely. I gave up everything for him. And I learned the hard way that love isn't enough when you lose yourself in the process. Victoria's eyes widened. So you do have feelings for him? I have memories, I corrected. Memories that warn me to be careful. And now they're threatening you to control me. This has gone too far. I stood, newfound determination coursing through me. We need to fight back. Together. Victoria looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. How? First we gather evidence of their threats. Then we find leverage of our own. I squeezed her hand. I won't let them hurt your brother, and I won't let them control our lives. As I left Victoria's apartment, my phone dinged with a message from an unknown number. It contained only an address and a time for tomorrow evening, followed by, if you want to understand the real Alexander Carter, be there. I stared at the cryptic message, a sense of foreboding washing over me. Every step I took to avoid my past seemed to lead me down increasingly complicated paths. Tomorrow's meeting might finally reveal the truth. But was I ready to face it? The crossroads I now stood at felt more dangerous than any I had faced before. In trying to change my destiny, I had inadvertently entangled myself in a web far more complex than the simple love triangle of my past life. And somehow I knew that whatever choice I made next would irrevocably alter not just my future, but everyone's around me. Rain poured down as I approached the address from the mysterious text, an old boathouse at the edge of the lake outside the city. Lightning flashed across the darkening sky, illuminating the dilapidated structure. Every instinct told me to turn back, yet I continued forward, determined to finally uncover the truth about Alexander. Inside, I found a single chair positioned in the center of the room, facing an old projector screen. The door closed behind me with an ominous click. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing in the empty space. "You came." A familiar voice emerged from the shadows. Not Alexander, but his mother, Eleanor Carter, stepped into the dim light. She looked remarkably well for someone who had recently suffered a cardiac episode. "Mrs. Carter? You sent that message." She nodded, gesturing to the chair. "Please sit. There are things you need to see." As I sat cautiously, she operated an old projector. Images flashed on the screen. Photographs of Alexander with various women over what appeared to be several years. In each photo he wore the same devoted expression I once knew so well. "My son has a pattern," Eleanor said quietly. "He finds brilliant, promising young women, pursues them with singular focus, convinces them to reshape their lives around his. And when he grows bored or finds someone new, he discards them." My stomach knotted as I watched the slideshow of Alexander's past relationships. Each woman looked strong, independent in the earlier photos, then increasingly diminished in later ones. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, though I already knew. "Because you're different." Eleanor clicked to a new image. A surveillance photo of me at the hospital the night I diagnosed her condition. "You see through him. You push back. And for the first time, I've seen genuine emotion in my son's eyes when he speaks of you." The projector switched off, plunging us into semi-darkness. "I don't understand," I said. "If you know what he does to women, why help him pursue me?" Eleanor sighed deeply. "Because I believe you might be the one person who could actually change him. Not by yielding to him, but by challenging him." She stepped closer. "But more importantly, you should have all the facts before you decide your path forward." "There's nothing to decide," I said firmly. "I have no interest in a relationship with Alexander." "Don't you?" Her knowing gaze made me shift uncomfortably. Then why did you come tonight? Why did you rush to the hospital when he called? Why do you carry his grandmother's pen everywhere? My hand instinctively went to my bag where the silver pen rested. How did you? I've had you watched, she admitted without apology. Just as I've had Alexander watched his entire life. That's disturbing on multiple levels, I said, standing up. I think this conversation is over. One more thing, Eleanor said as I turned to leave. Alexander isn't the only one with secrets. Victoria Hayes isn't who you think she is either. I froze. What do you mean? Ask her about Moscow. About why she transferred to this university specifically. Eleanor handed me a thick envelope. Everything you need to know is in here. The choice of what to do with it is yours. I took the envelope and left without another word, my mind reeling. Back in my apartment, I spread the contents across my table. Documents, photographs, and transcripts that painted a disturbing picture of both Alexander and Victoria. Victoria had been planted at the university by a corporate rival of Carter Enterprises. Her chance friendship with me, the supposedly random assignment as my roommate, all orchestrated to get close to Alexander through me. Her brother's gambling debts were real, but they had been deliberately created as leverage to control her. As for Alexander, the pattern his mother described was accurate, but with a twist I hadn't expected. His pursuit of brilliant women wasn't just a game, it was business. Each previous girlfriend had possessed knowledge or connections valuable to Carter Enterprises. Their innovations had been quietly absorbed into Carter patents. Their careers stalled after the breakups through subtle interference. I sat back overwhelmed. In my past life I had been manipulated by both of them without ever realizing it. This time, with foreknowledge and Eleanor's evidence, I could see the elaborate game being played with me as the central piece. A knock at my door startled me from my thoughts. Through the peephole I saw Alexander, soaking wet from the rain, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "I know you're in there, Sophia," he pulled. "Please, we need to talk." Against my better judgment I opened the door. "About what, Alexander? About how you've manipulated every girlfriend you've ever had? Or about how Victoria was planted in my life to get to you?" His eyes widened in genuine shock. "What are you talking about?" I gestured to the evidence spread across my table. "Your mother showed me everything. The pattern, the corporate espionage, all of it." Alexander stepped inside, scanning the documents with growing horror. "My mother gave you these? Why would she?" He stopped suddenly, his expression shifting to one of bitter understanding. "Of course. The final test." "Test? What test?" He sank into a chair, running his hands through his wet hair. "My mother has been testing me my entire life. Setting up elaborate scenarios to see if I'll make the same mistakes my father did." He looked up at me, his eyes haunted. "She believes I'm destined to become him unless proven otherwise." "And the other women? Were they tests too?" "What other women?" "Sophia I've dated but never seriously. Nothing like whatever she's told you." I pointed to the photographs. "Then explain these." He examined them closely, then laughed without humor. "Photoshopped. Expertly but clearly manufactured." He pulled out his phone, opened his photo gallery and showed me the originals. Group photos at charity events and business functions, now cropped and edited to appear intimate. "Even if that's true, what about Victoria? The documents about her connection to your corporate rivals?" Alexander frowned. "That part might be real. There was a security report about potential corporate espionage last year." He looked troubled. "But my mother's involvement changes everything. She's manipulating both of us, Sophia." I paced the small room, trying to make sense of it all. Why would she go to such lengths? "Control," Alexander said simply. "My father nearly destroyed Carter Enterprises 20 years ago with bad decisions driven by his personal affairs. My mother stepped in, saved the company, and has been the true power ever since. She's determined to ensure I don't inherit until I've proven myself worthy by her standards." The pieces began shifting in my mind, forming a different picture than I'd imagined. "If what you're saying is true, then..." A frantic banging on the door interrupted us. Victoria stood outside, mascara streaked down her face, clutching a similar envelope to the one Eleanor had given me. "They know I failed," she sobbed as I let her in. "They're going to destroy my brother." "Who's they?" I asked, though I already suspected. "BioRival Industries." They've been blackmailing me for months. Victoria stopped short when she saw Alexander. What is he doing here? Apparently getting played by the same people as us, I said. Victoria, tell us the truth. All of it. She collapsed onto my couch, defeat written across her face. It started with my brother's gambling debts. BioRival approached me, said they'd pay off everything if I helped them get information on Carter Enterprises' new cardiac research. They knew Alexander Carter was interested in you, Sophia, so I was supposed to become your friend, then encourage your relationship with him so I could gather intelligence through you. Alexander listened intently, his expression unreadable. But you did the opposite, he observed. You've been trying to keep us apart. Victoria nodded miserably. Because I actually became Sophia's friend. A real friend. I couldn't use her like that. She looked at me with genuine remorse. I'm so sorry, Sophia. I never meant for any of this to happen. If BioRival wanted Carter research, I said slowly, and Eleanor Carter wanted to test Alexander, what if they're working together? Alexander's head snapped up. That would explain everything. BioRival's CEO is my mother's cousin. They've maintained a public rivalry for years, but they've always been suspiciously cooperative behind the scenes. The three of us stared at each other as the full implications sank in. We had all been pawns in a much larger game. So what now? Victoria asked, wiping her tears. Alexander stood, newfound determination in his eyes. Now we take control of the game. Over the next week we formed an unlikely alliance. Alexander used his position to gather intelligence on his mother's dealings with BioRival. Victoria contacted her handler, feeding carefully crafted misinformation. I threw myself into research looking for leverage we could use. Meanwhile, James had grown increasingly concerned about my sudden secretiveness. After days of evasion, I finally told him a version of the truth. Corporate espionage targeting my research, Alexander helping me navigate it, Victoria caught in the middle. I want to help, he insisted during one of our study sessions. Whatever you're planning, you could use another perspective. I hesitated but ultimately agreed. His brilliant analytical mind proved invaluable as we constructed our countermove. The plan came together on a cold, clear evening exactly 1 month after my rebirth day. We arranged a meeting at the Carter estate, ostensibly to discuss my potential research position with Carter Medical. Eleanor Carter, her husband Charles, Victoria, James, Alexander, and I gathered in the imposing conference room. Before we discuss my future, I began, I think we should address the manipulation you've all been engaging in. Eleanor's composed expression didn't waver. I'm not sure what you mean, dear. I think you do, I said, sliding a folder across the table. Your arrangement with BioRival. The fabricated photos. The orchestrated circumstances bringing Alexander, Victoria, and me together. All of it. Charles Carter turned to his wife in confusion. Eleanor, what is she talking about? Testing, Alexander said, his voice hard. Mother has been testing me using Sophia and Victoria as pawns. Just like she's been testing you for 20 years, father. Eleanor maintained her calm demeanor. Every great family must ensure its legacy is protected. I've only done what was necessary. By lying, manipulating, threatening innocent people. I challenged. That's not protection. That's control. You have no idea what it takes to maintain what we've built, Eleanor replied, an edge creeping into her voice. The sacrifices required. Actually, I do, I said quietly. In another life, I sacrificed everything for someone who didn't deserve it. I won't let that happen again, to me or to anyone else in this room. Eleanor's composure finally cracked. Another life? What nonsense are you? I died, I interrupted. At 52, after wasting my life with a man who never loved me. And then I came back determined to make different choices. The room fell silent. Victoria and James exchanged concerned glances, clearly worried about my mental state. Alexander, however, stared at me with dawning recognition. The hospital, he whispered. How you knew exactly what was wrong with Mother. How you've always seemed to know things you shouldn't. Ridiculous, Eleanor scoffed. Time travel? Reincarnation? Is this really your grand countermove? No, I said, pulling out a final document. This is evidence of your collusion with BioRival to manipulate stock prices through strategic information leaks. A clear case of securities fraud. Charles Carter snatched the document, his face paling as he read. Eleanor, tell me this isn't true. Everything I did for this family, she insisted. Then you should have trusted your family, Alexander said, standing. Instead of trying to control us all. What followed was 3 hours of painful but necessary truth. Charles learned of his wife's decades of manipulation. Alexander confronted his mother about her lack of faith in him. Victoria detailed her coercion by bio-rival through her brother's debts. By evening's end, exhausted but clearer than we'd been in weeks, we reached a resolution. Eleanor would step back from operational control of Carter Enterprises. Victoria's brother would receive help for his gambling addiction, his debts settled legally. Alexander would take a more active role in the company with greater autonomy. As for me, I accepted a legitimate research position with Carter Medical, reporting directly to the board, not to any single Carter family member. When the others had left, Alexander and I stood alone in the garden behind the Carter mansion. Well, that was quite a revelation, he said, watching me carefully. Rebirth? Really? I smiled tiredly. Would you believe me if I said yes? After tonight, I'd believe almost anything. He stepped closer. In this other life, you and I were together? Married, I confirmed. For 25 miserable years, ending with you waiting for me to die so you could be with Victoria. He winced. No wonder you've been so determined to push me away. Can you blame me? Not at all. He took my hand gently. But Sophia, I'm not that man. Whatever he did in that other life, it wasn't me. I pulled my hand away. I know that intellectually. But emotionally, I can't separate you from those memories. Then give me the chance to create new ones. His eyes held mine, sincere in a way I'd never seen in my past life. Not as a couple necessarily. Just, don't shut me out completely. Before I could respond, my phone rang. James, checking that I was okay after the intense confrontation. Alexander noticed the smile that automatically touched my lips when I saw the caller ID. He's good for you, Alexander said quietly. I can see that. He is, I agreed. Uncomplicated. Honest. Everything I'm not? There was no bitterness in his tone, only acceptance. Everything the old you wasn't, I corrected. This you. I'm still figuring out. Alexander nodded. Fair enough. Take all the time you need. 10 months passed. Victoria transferred to a journalism program in New York, where her brother was receiving treatment for his addiction. We remained in contact, our friendship slowly rebuilding on more honest foundations. She was dating a photography student, someone completely outside the Carter orbit. James and I grew closer, our relationship developing naturally from friendship to something deeper. His quiet brilliance and steady support became the foundation I needed to pursue my medical ambitions without compromise. Alexander surprised everyone by taking a sabbatical from Carter Enterprises to work with Doctors Without Borders, using his business acumen to improve their operational efficiency in underserved regions. We exchanged occasional emails, professional, friendly, but carefully distant. On the anniversary of my rebirth, I sat alone in my apartment, reflecting on the extraordinary year. My phone buzzed with a message from Alexander. 1 year of your new life. Making the most of it. I smiled, typing back. Every day. You. Learning who I really am apart from my family's expectations. It's terrifying and exhilarating. I hesitated, then asked the question that had lingered in my mind. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been reborn with foreknowledge? His response came quickly. Every day. But I'm grateful you were. You saved us all from becoming terrible versions of ourselves. That evening, as James, our daughter, Alexander, Victoria, and I celebrated the successful surgery, I marveled at how destiny could be rewritten. Not by avoiding love or running from pain, but by facing truth and choosing wisely. In my first life, I had lost myself trying to earn Alexander's love. In this one, I had found myself, and in doing so had helped everyone around me find better versions of themselves too. A toast, Alexander proposed, raising his glass. To Sophia, who taught us all that it's never too late to change your fate. I smiled, remembering the desperate, dying woman I had once been. No, I corrected gently. To second chances and making them count.